Are you looking for more out of your life? Do you need ideas on how to start new businesses and how to move forward in your own personal life? Well, guess what? You have come to the right radio show. At You Can Overcome Anything podcast show, you will learn and hear from many people from all walks of life who are sharing their challenges, their stories, the habits, and the mind shifts they had to overcome to become who they are today. On top, you will get a chance to connect and see how you can overcome anything by networking and learning about your next move through this radio show. I present to you our great speakers at You Can Overcome Anything podcast show with your host, Cesar Espino. Hello there, and welcome back to another episode of You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. It is your host, Cesar Espino, and today I have a special guest. His name is Geoff. Hey, Geoff, how are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for being here. Before we get started, let me tell you a little bit about Geoff. Over the years, Geoff has experienced the pursuit of peak performance from a wide variety of viewpoints in a number of different sports and performance-oriented activities. The successes and especially the failures in these experiences have given Geoff a unique big picture viewpoint of effective mental performance training for athletes. This unique perspective has helped Geoff create the vision and the methodology for GGZAP, in which we'll get into that in a little bit. So Geoff, definitely tell me a little bit about your background. Where are you originally from, and how was your upbringing?
I grew up in Vermont, and very small town, and it's not a very populous state. It used to be the second least populous state, but it was a very good place to grow up, being in a small town like that. And my dad was a teacher and coach at the University of Vermont in a number of different sports. So I was always interested in sports from the time I could remember. When I was as young as could be, he was always coaching something, and I always wanted to play sports and always wanted to potentially play professional sports as well.
Okay, got it. Do you feel like, I always hear this, and I want to just maybe get your point of view. Do you feel that we as kids tend to follow what our parents are doing? Like we want to strive to be, whatever they do in their industry to a certain extent, or do we kind of choose our own path, or we get forced to kind of fall into that?
I would say from my experience, it varies quite a bit. Some kids kind of go the opposite way of what their parents are doing. They see the struggles that their parents go through and they say, I don't want to do that. I want to do something else. And others look at their parents and want to emulate them. So I think that one's one you'd have to kind of look at each individual situation as opposed to kind of putting a general theme on it.
Got you. Okay. And so you obviously grew up with with loving sports and kind of doing that. Did you get involved with a lot of activities during your younger years or high school years in terms of sports activities?
Yeah, it was interesting because I was always fascinated by sports and always around it, but it was a different time back then. There wasn't anywhere near as many organized sports that you could play in as a kid. Like the first organized sport that I played in was baseball, which I really didn't enjoy very much. It was way too slow, but it was really the only active thing that you could do during the summer. So summer times as a young kid I was more on my bike and going fishing and going hiking, just because it was the high energy stuff and the exploring type of stuff that I liked. It wasn't really until junior high that there was any available soccer leagues, which was my favorite sport, and ski racing. So those were kind of the two first things that I dove into, and tennis as well, because I could just play that with friends. You didn't need anything organized. Right. So yeah, I mean, I played sports whenever I could, but the opportunities to play organized team sports were very limited back then.
Got it. Now, in terms of getting into your college years, what was that thing that you wanted to do or become going into college?
By the time I got to college, I was still very much into soccer and ski racing, and I thought I wanted to go pro as an athlete and wasn't really sure whether I was thinking more soccer or ski racing. In my freshman year in college, I was actually on the soccer team and ski raced at the same time. But then I realized that my ski racing skills were nowhere near the level that needed to go further.
Mm-hmm.
And so the freshman year in college was the last year that I ski raced, and I kind of put all of my energy into trying to play pro soccer after that freshman year in college.
Got it. Was your focus more primarily around sports or academics, or was there a balance? Because I know a lot of times, obviously, you can get a scholarship for the academics through your sports, right? And so, what was your focus? Was there a bigger focus on one or the other?
Yeah, my focus was all sports. I was just in college to try to get it enough better so I could play pro sports. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had the potential probably to do okay in academics, but it was all of my emphasis, all of my energy was just on becoming the best soccer player I could.
Got it. Looking back now, are there any lessons? I don't think there's any regrets or failures or setbacks. More than anything, there's lessons when we go through life, and we extract those lessons, right? So, were there any lessons? Obviously, with the idea of I was more focused on the sports side of it versus the academics. Any lessons that might have come out of that, or you're definitely perfectly fine the way it played out for you?
There were definitely some bumps along the road, and there were some things that I probably would have done differently. I probably would have tried to start playing soccer full time earlier, as opposed to staying in college. But in general, the bumps in the road are the things you learn the most from. So it's hard to look back and say I would have done anything differently.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I gotta say, definitely, you did a lot of great things that definitely helped you out. I mean, with the idea, and we're gonna dive into that big picture or the mythology for GGZAP, right? SAP. You've been able to do definitely a lot of things. Award-winning PGA teacher, award-winning mental game coach, pro athlete in soccer and golf, motivational speaker, best-selling author, Tai Chi teacher, college ski racer, and college tennis player. And I'm looking at that, I'm like, wow. I mean, definitely blown away by all those accomplishments. So the one thing that really stands out on all of this is the one thing you mentioned earlier was, or I'm looking at it here, is the big picture and having that mental performance, right, or that mental aspect. Tell me about it for that mental training, because I do believe that our mind, our mental aspect can either make us or break us, right? And there's a lot of elements that go with that. So I want to really dive into that idea of what is that, especially coming around the idea of mental health. What is that to you, and how do you develop that?
Well, and first off, those two are very, very different pieces of the puzzle. Mental
Okay,
performance is very different from mental health.
got it.
So, and that's actually one of the things that I bump into a lot is that when athletes or people hear that I help athletes with their mental performance, we automatically, our mind goes to the idea that there's something wrong, that we're trying to fix something wrong. And that's the mental health side of it, is if there are things that are keeping you from being happy or keeping you from being fulfilled as a person. And the side benefit of what I do is it does help with those as well. But my primary focus is taking what an athlete has and helping them to learn the different dynamics in their mind and in their emotions and in their body to be able to perform better using the tools that they have. So one way to look at sports is you do physical training to raise the level that you can potentially perform at. But if your mind doesn't match that, you're going to be getting far away from that potential and close to that potential. And that roller coaster can be really, really frustrating. And that was kind of the big thing that I experienced. I had days when I was playing both professional soccer and professional golf where I felt like, you know what, I can be at the top of this game. And then the next day I would feel like, what the heck am I doing here? I need to get a job working at McDonald's. And what I came to discover over the years through research was that it's the ability to access certain mental states that gives you the ability to access the peak of what your body can do. So what we know now, all these years later, is that there's no such thing as muscle memory. All of the things that you do in training for any sport are patterns that are actually stored in your brain. So if you want to access those patterns, you'll have to learn how to train your brain. The muscles don't remember anything. They can change instantly.
Got it. So going back to what you just mentioned, right? The idea of, if your body wants to, the exercise or whatever you're doing with the body, but and the mental uh, aspect of it is not aligned with that, then how do you train the mind, or that mental aspect? What are the things that you do to make sure that that mental state
Mm-hmm.
of being is where it needs to be, so that when you're super tired and you want to do that extra push-up or whatever that might be, whatever aspect of that physical aspect, you're still gonna get it done, because obviously that's a huge thing, right? What are the
Absolutely.
things that you do with that mental aspect?
Well, and this is where the research, especially in the last 10 or 15 years, really helps us, is we now know that it's a very specific brainwave frequency or mental focus state where you perform your best.
Okay.
And the best part is you don't have to be perfect. And I'm sure you've heard the term the flow state or the zone. And that's what ZAP stands for, is zone
Mhm.
athletic performance. So my job is to help people be able to recognize when they're getting close to the zone so that they can train to be able to access that more often. So when your mental state moves too far away from the zone, that's when you get the really wild inconsistencies and the really bad days of performance. So it's not that you have to be in the zone all the time or in the flow state all the time. That's actually at this state, at this stage, it's impossible.
Mhm.
But you can train so that you can be close to it a lot more often. And that just opens up a whole new level of performance for most athletes. So the basic is, number one, you have to understand what the zone is, but then you have to be able to recognize personally, well, what are the signals? We call them cues that allow you to know, hey, I'm getting closer to being in the right state, or I'm further away from being in the right state. So we train people to be able to recognize what their cues are. And then there's triggers that can help you get that back so you can reset.
Yeah, and that was my next question is, how do you tap into that, and how do you know that you're getting closer, or how do you find that, right? For I would assume that it might be different for every athlete or person. Maybe I'm not sure. Except how can somebody find that or know that they're getting close to that? What are some indicators or some cues to say, hey, I'm getting close to this?
Well, some of the easiest ways to recognize it are an absence of thoughts. Okay, so the more thoughts you have in mind, the further away from performing well you are. And
Uh,
also an absence of tension in your body. So when you have too many thoughts or you have too many emotions, then your tension level in your body comes up, your heart rate comes up, artificially up. So obviously in sports where there's cardio, like in soccer, your heart rate is going to be up. But when you have too many thoughts or too many emotions, your heart rate comes even further up. So the lower your heart rate is for the sport that you're doing, and the lower your tension level is for the sport that you're doing, and the less thoughts that you have, the closer you are getting to the zone.
got it. And how do you find? How can somebody initiate or begin controlling those thoughts? Because obviously when we're looking at the mind, right, there's so many thoughts that are going through our head every day, right?
Yeah.
And so it is, even if you're in a state of meditation, you're still going to get all these thoughts coming through, right? And so how do you start controlling that to be in a better state flow?
Well, it's interesting that you said meditation because that's one of when I work on this with folks, some of it is stuff to do at home outside of sport to kind of get some base fitness level, okay, with being able to quiet down thoughts. And some of it is stuff that applies to their training and to their performing. But when you talk about meditation, the goal of meditation is to be able to let thoughts go. So there's always going to be thoughts coming into your
Right.
head. The question is, do you identify with them or can you watch them pass and let them go? So when you're able to let the thoughts go and let the emotions go, you get closer and closer to that optimum performance state.
Right, got it. Okay, no, and that's very interesting. I'm always very fascinated in terms of what the mind can do in many different aspects in life, right? And so looking at the mental aspect and understanding the power of the mind, right? Which, by the way, I always tell people that one of the things that we have that is so powerful that came to us at zero cost and is costing us really nothing is the mind. Yet, unfortunately, because it's costing us $0, a lot of people tend to disregard that, and they don't really put a value to that. Yet that's one of the most powerful things that we have, right? And so it's very interesting for me, when we can exercise the mind in many different aspects, not just in the athletic aspect, even in the idea of how can I become a better person? How can I start seeing things from a different perspective? Utilize this for my personal and professional growth and things of that nature. Are there any things that you recommend or have done throughout the years to really embody a positive state of mind, not just for the athletic aspect, in general in your life?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the things that tend to translate the best are just focusing on the idea of being present. And that's a really big thing that you hear a lot of these days. But understanding what presence is. Presence means that you are highly engaged in your senses. Your eyes are turned on, your ears are turned on, your body is turned on, and your thoughts are turned off. And another way to look at that is inside, what we know from research is that inside of your mind, there's actually three different minds working all at the same time. There is an emotional mind, and then there is a body mind, and then there's a thinking mind or a cognitive mind. And all of them have a purpose, and you can get benefits from all of them. But when you can learn how to switch from your thinking mind to your body mind, or from your emotional mind to your body mind, then you start to have not only more control of your sports performance, but also of your life. Because we tend to get lost in the emotional mind at crucial times when we need to be in the thinking mind, or we tend to get lost in the thinking mind when we need to be in our body mind. Like, if you imagine if you're walking up the stairs and you're thinking about what your toes and your knees and your ankles and your hands are doing, that's completely the wrong mind for the wrong activity. So one of the big picture ways of looking at what I do is I help my athletes learn, all right, well, what does it feel like when you're in the thinking mind? And what does it feel like when you're in the body mind? And what does it feel like when you're in the emotional mind? And how do you fit that into your particular sport?
Yeah. For those that don't know quite the difference, and I know you just talked about it briefly on that, what are some major attributes to each one of those different mindsets?
Great question. So the thinking mind is the part of our brain that's really good at analysis and logic and reason. So it's the one that's going to make the cognitive decisions for you. If you think about it like passing a bill through Congress, you got to take in all the information from the future of what might happen, taking all the information from the past of what has happened in the past, and you have to weigh in on all the different parts of your brain to make the right decision for something. So the thinking mind is really designed to be able to make decisions that are based on the whole picture of things. Now, you can imagine when you're taking in all that much information, that particular mind works very, very slowly. And it doesn't take, when you're in the thinking mind, your sensory shuts down. You don't see as well, you don't hear as well, because you're kind of lost in your thoughts, is the term we would use. The body mind, or the sensory mind, is kind of our primal animal lizard mind, where you're basically taking in as much sensory information as you can, be it visual or auditory or kinesthetic. And those decisions are very, very quick, and they're all just based on what's happening to your senses in the moment. So, one of the ways would be, imagine you're standing on the side of the street. If you're using your thinking mind, you're going to go, okay, well, I'm on this street here, and there's a lot of traffic here, and it's this time of day, and I got to watch the light over there, and I got to be careful of bicyclists. So there's a lot of factors going into that cognitive decision. If you're in your body mind or your sensory mind, what you're going to do is you're going to stand on the sidewalk, you're going to look right, look left, and go. So the body mind, or the sensory mind, takes in a huge amount of information. It can take in actually 100,000 times more sensory information than when the thinking mind is on. So when you're performing something where you need speed and you need to be really fluid and you need to be really powerful, it's the body mind. Now, the emotional mind is what kicks in a lot of the neurochemicals in your brain. So when you're super, super happy, that kicks in dopamine, right? It's a very addictive, positive feeling. When you're stressed, you're going to get cortisol, which is the stress hormone. So you can use the emotional mind. It gives you a quick burst of energy. That's what emotions do. They're like a shot of caffeine. They'll give you a quick burst of energy, and then you're going to crash. Okay. They also can help you tighten focus. So this is when you get up near fight or flight, you get this really strong burst of energy and really tight focus, but immediately after that, you're going to crash completely. So the feel is that the thinking mind is your rational, logical, and your body mind is all about taking in all the sensory information in the moment so that your body can do what it's trained to do. It's more in your subconscious. And then the emotional mind is your reaction to the situations that are going on around you.
Yeah, I love that. No, that's definitely amazing. One of the things that I have here is, which I think is very important, is just a few minutes per day of focused mental training can make a huge difference in sports and in life.
Yeah.
So, talking about that, what would be some mental training that somebody can do at home, and for how long, right?
Yeah. So imagine, let's equate it to physical. Let's imagine that you say you want to get your legs a little bit stronger. Okay. If you do 10 squats a day with no weight, but you do those over a long period of time, imagine how much stronger you're going to get after a month or 2 months. Well, the same thing's true with your brain. You don't have to do 2 or 3 hours a day. You don't have to go sit up on top of a mountain. But if you do, there are some really, really well-targeted breathing exercises. I have a couple that I do with my athletes that are kind of their favorites, but we have some good research that says if you do these specific breathing exercises, it helps you to be able to feel the difference between when you're present and when you're not present. And that's kind of the core element. So 5 to 10 minutes of these breathing exercises per day can make a massive difference in being able to quiet the thoughts and quiet the emotions. And that makes a difference not only in performance, but also in daily life too. Like, you know, if you're talking about relationships with people, if you can't separate from an emotion, then that relationship is going to be running into friction at some point in time.
Right. And are those breathing exercises anything related to like breath work, or is that one of those, right? Okay.
Yeah, just to give you an example, one of my favorites is called alpha breathing. And the reason it's called alpha breathing is that when you breathe with a particular rhythm and a particular focus of your attention, it causes your brain waves to lower down into the alpha frequency, which is where presence is. So what they found with the research is that when you do 5 breaths per minute, so you breathe in for 6 seconds and you breathe out for 6 seconds, if you're paying attention to the movement of the breath and you're letting the thoughts go, then your brain waves calm down into that present state. So it allows you to let go of thoughts much easier and let go of emotions much easier. And just like in it, you know, if you're exercising your mind muscle, it's going to get stronger if you do it on a regular basis, even if it's just a couple minutes a day.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So do you normally work with just athletes, or what kind of people do you work with?
Yeah, I work mostly with athletes, just because I've had experience in a number of sports, and obviously, you know, my passion is helping people be able to have more fun doing what they love, and it's quite a range. I have some professional golfers, but I also have some kids that are in high school and junior high, and everybody in between. It's more that when somebody can recognize that they're not having as much fun and as much success doing what they want, and they know they need help on the mental side as opposed to just the physical side, that's when it works. It becomes a great relationship for us.
Got it. Where can people find you if they want to learn more about your services and how you can help them?
The easiest way is just to go right to my website, which is an easy one to remember, which is ggzap.com.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. And is it mostly I'm assuming it's one-on-one kind of I don't know, I'm not sure if it's coaching, but nevertheless one-on-one training, and it varies based on the need. Could be weeks, months, or how does that work for you, your programs?
Yeah, so I try to have a nice wide spectrum because some people are just looking for a little bit of help and some people are looking for a total transformation. But I do work mostly individually, but I'm starting to do more group stuff with coaches because there's a lot of, especially in the sport of golf, which is I've been teaching golf for the last 30 years. So there's a lot of golf teachers that recognize the mental game is such a big piece of what's keeping their players from doing as well as they'd like. Yeah. So I'm starting to do some mastermind sessions with groups of coaches. But yeah, it goes up all the way from I try not to do less than 4 to 6 sessions with a person just because it takes some time for things to kind of take hold. And
Right.
you want to make sure they're getting enough, like if you make one change with a certain muscle group, other muscle groups are going to have to adapt to that. Well, if you make one change with your mind, then other parts of your mind are going to have to adapt to that as well. So we want to make sure we're giving it enough chance to see some success moving forward. But yeah, absolutely. It tends to be tailored very much to each individual, just depending on what they need and what they're looking for.
Yeah, got it. Tell me about your book, or I don't know how many books you have. Tell me a little bit about that book. How did the idea come about, and what is it about?
Well, I have 3 books that are on Amazon that are just golf instruction books. So they're physically
Okay.
teaching you how to do the swing. And this fall, I'm finishing up my new book, which is called Access Your Best, which
Mm,
is about the mental training side of thing for sports. So I'm excited about launching that and getting that going. It's one of the things when I do speaking engagements or when I talk to people, they're like, well, yeah, do you have a book I could read? That sounds really interesting. So
right.
it's time to make it happen.
Yeah, yeah. So definitely the speaking engagements and just connecting with people inspired to do this new book, huh?
Yeah, the speaking engagements are so fun. Just being able to show people that, hey, you know what? There's a really simple way of breathing that you can do that can make a big difference in your life, and being able to share that with people in large groups is really fun.
Yeah, yeah. No, I definitely believe that. And what are some things that are coming up for you, or any new adventures that you're working on?
That's a good question. I'm going to be doing some I would call them intro or explanatory short form for people. So I guess one of the terms that you hear these days is white papers, basically.
Hmm.
So just kind of explanations of for different sports. How is it that mental training can help you, and what's the research behind it? Just because it's such a new area that even though when we look at professional golf, huge percentage of professional golfers all have mental coaches.
Yeah.
But when you look at the people who are just doing it for fun, almost nobody has help with the mental game. They all go for swing stuff. So my goal is to try to contact or touch as many people as possible and just let them know the opportunities of how they can improve their experience with what they're doing, and that it doesn't have to be hard and it doesn't have to be super time consuming. So the big picture answer to your question is I'm doing a number of white papers, and I'm also doing a little planner, and I have a few challenges. I also have a video series online that if people want to do it yourself, they can follow. It's 35 video lessons where they can walk themselves right through the whole process.
Wow, I love that. I love that. You've given us a lot of great stuff, and oftentimes, people that are listening to the show might be going through some challenge, right? And obviously, the fact that you've done this type of work and help people with the mental aspect of just exercising that mind aspect. If people that are listening to us and or are watching us, they're going through any kind of challenge, whatever that might be, what are a couple of things that you can say to them so they can start overcoming that challenge?
I think that the one of the best ways to be able to overcome big challenges, well, there's kind of 2 sides to the story.
Hmm.
One is being able to be more present or more mindful in more and more stressful situations. And
Mm,
that's breathing exercises or meditation. My personal favorite is Tai Chi, because Tai Chi is meditation and movement. So you get all the benefits of the meditation, but you do it in movement, which is much better when you don't like just sitting still for a long time. The other side of it is the psychological side, which is, there's a lot of talk about the emotions and how do we deal with emotions and fear and all the things and anxiety, all the things that we come up against on a daily basis. But to me, the core thing that is a little bit underexplored is your personal sense of self-belief. When you come up to a challenge, do you go, you know what, I've got this? Or you come up to the challenge and you go, oh, I'm not sure if I can do that. So building your sense of self-belief is one of the strongest things that you can do to help overcome tougher and tougher challenges. If you don't really believe that you can overcome challenges, then you're going to find a way to fail at them. But if down deep you have this strong sense of self-belief psychologically that, hey, you know what, I'm going to come up to new things and I may fail at some of them, but eventually I'm going to get over it because I believe in myself. So that psychological foundation of self-belief is a huge one as well.
Yeah, I definitely love both points that you mentioned, and one of the things that I can probably hear people maybe saying or talking about is, well, and especially right now in this society, there's so many different things. We're always busy. Again, being present, right? And I always tell people, be here now, right? And again, with society, with the news, with work, family, whatever, all these different things come into play. And the one thing people say, well, I don't have time to be present, or I don't have time to do A, B, C, and D, right? What is your response to that? Because obviously we all have 24 hours on a day.
Yeah.
And obviously, if we want to become better, we got to do something different. Yet again, oftentimes we end up shooting ourselves by saying, I don't have the time to even do a 2 minute or 3 minute or 4 minute, whatever, right? How do you, respond to something like that?
That's a tough one because the reality is we can all find 5 minutes or 10 minutes somewhere. Okay. If we can't find 5 minutes or 10 minutes somewhere, what that tells me is you really don't want to find 5 minutes or 10 minutes somewhere.
Mm,
So there has to be enough value in making a change before you're going to make the change. But I think the key is it's what drives your passion. So if somebody's telling you, hey, you need to go do a breathing exercise and that's going to change your life, but you try the breathing exercise and it doesn't really inspire you at all, then it's going to be tough to motivate yourself to do that. So one of the best things that you can do is not just say, hey, I'm going to take 5 or 10 minutes and I'm going to do this every day. So you want to make sure that that particular activity engages you. So whether it's breathing or whether it's walking or whether it's doing seated meditation or whether it's doing Tai Chi or yoga, if it doesn't fuel your passion, you're going to give it up at some point when the situation around you makes it hard to do it.
right. In the second point, thing that you mentioned, being able to find that self belief that I can do this down the line. Definitely a lot of that comes down to confidence, comes down to whether or not I can get out of this challenging time. A lot of people again do not have that self belief. How can somebody start believing even in a very challenging time? You hear of all these different things. I just lost my job, my wife left me, my husband left me. Everything's going down, right? Everything that could go wrong is going wrong. Where am I going to find the courage and the belief that things are going to be better? And unfortunately, I've seen cases, and I known people that unfortunately have taken that, going back to that mental aspect of it, that sometimes they take very harsh measures in their lives because they don't have that sense of belief. How
Yeah.
do you start factoring that to say, you know what, yeah, at the end of the day, I gotta believe in myself?
So there's two sides to that one as well. Over the long term, what you want to do is you want to set up a series of small steps to get you to a goal. And you want to make sure those steps allow you to achieve success. So what really builds a strong sense of self-belief is when you've overcome a series of small challenges. So if you've never overcome any challenges, it's going to be almost impossible to have self-belief. And if you set a big goal and say, I want to get to that goal, and that goal is far away, it's going to be really hard to have self-belief because you're going to fail a bunch on the way to that challenge. But if you set up a series of little
Mm-hmm.
daily goals that, okay, well, I'm going to do this for 1 minute today, and I'm going to do it for 1 minute and 30 seconds the next day, and you succeed at that goals, that gradually builds your sense of belief. The other thing that I have found super, super helpful, especially with the golfers where there's a lot of time in between shots, is self-talk. So most of us do not monitor that little voice that's going on inside our head the whole time we're awake every day. And there's often a lot of negative chatter in our minds. So when you start listening to the talk in your mind, when you hear negative things, you replace it with a positive thing. So positive self-talk is a huge thing for building self-belief because, if you think about it, there's 18 hours a day when you're awake. If you're hearing negative things from your own mind for any percentage of that 18 hours, how are you ever going to build self-belief? But if you're just paying attention to the things that you're telling yourself, over time, you can change the tone of what you're telling yourself. And that's a big factor in building self-belief as well.
I love that. Boom. There's some really good golden nuggets.
And that's an easy one. Anybody
Yeah.
can monitor their self-talk and so the first thing is to monitor it. You have to become aware of, you know what, I'm like 60% positive and 40% negative, or I'm 90-10. You have to know where you are first. and then you can gradually start flipping the switch and turning it the other way.
Yeah, and I forget where I heard this is knowing exactly where you are not will tell you where you need to be, right? So you need to know exactly where you are not.
Yep.
My last question for you, Geoff, is do you have any daily habits, rituals that you do on a day-to-day basis to just kind of help you through your positivity day in, day out?
Yeah, I do Tai Chi every day.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
So Tai Chi is basically it's a form of moving meditation. It helps you connect your focus, your breath, and your body movement. So when you just do breathing exercises, you're trying to access presence through your breathing. Or if you just do meditation, you're just trying to do it in your mind. But I found that over the years, and I've been doing Tai Chi since 1991, so long time, that when you're connecting movement and breath and your focus, for me, it's the way that kind of keeps me engaged. It's where my passion is as far as being able to keep the right mental state when I need it.
Awesome, awesome. I love it. Well, Geoff, I really had an amazing time with you today and these conversations. Anything else you want to say before I let you go?
No, I really appreciate you having me on, and great questions. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today. And definitely for the rest of you guys, do me a favor. Go ahead and share this message. Connect with Geoff. Go ahead and follow him. Go check out his
Absolutely.
website.
Feel free to
Look at,
touch base.
yeah, go ahead and look at his books too, and be on the lookout for the new book coming out. And do me a favor, share this message because definitely somebody needs to hear this message. And I'll see you guys at the next episode of You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Cesar Espino, real estate investor, business coach, and consultant, and author of the book, You Can Overcome Anything, Even When the World Says No. My number is 424-501-6046. In my book, I talk about making the necessary changes to shift your mind for prosperity and certainty. Pick up your copy at Amazon. I also love helping families with their real estate and can purchase your house fast and all cash. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. My number is 424-501-6046.
Thank you for having me today. I am so glad you've tuned into this podcast. You can find me at your favorite podcast platform where you can like, subscribe, comment, and share. And to learn more about myself, my services, you can find me at www.cesarrespino.com, or you can also find me at your social media. Thanks for joining me, and I am looking forward to having you at the next episode. And know you truly can overcome anything.